Hi. Okay, this is the last one, all right? The next theory that we are going to study, or the next method that we are going to study, is the Transformational Generative Grammar, or TG grammar. Okay, so far we have studied IC analysis, we've studied PS grammar, and this is the last one, which is TG grammar. Okay, and this was also introduced by Noam Chomsky's syntactic structures. Okay, and it was a very revolutionary theory, but some of the concepts that were used in this particular theory were already existing, all right? And a new version of this particular theory was introduced in his book called The Aspects of Theory of Syntax in the year 1965. And he questioned some of the basic, ideas that were existing in the structural approach towards language. Now, there are a few points which make it different from all of the other existing theories. First one is that he looked at language as a creative process instead of a very technical one. Okay, he says that language is a creative process, all right, and that any speaker of a language can produce numerous utterances or numerous sentences, and this is not happening because he's following certain rules. This is because of the exposure that that particular person has of a language, and because of this exposure that they have, they are able to produce n number of sentences and utterances. Okay, they can also understand and create novel utterances, that means sentences or usages that have not been created so far. That is also something that humans are capable of doing, because language is a creative process. Okay, and the grammar of any language is not just a mere classification, okay, of the actual sentences, but it should be a system of rules and principles internalized by the native speaker. Okay, it should not be something that is stated, it should be internalized by the person due to the exposure that that person has to a language. Okay, and while the number of the input that people get, okay, the input that we have, that means the rules that we have in grammar are very limited, but the number of outputs or the utterances that we can create using these particular rules are infinite. Okay, so the input is less while the output is more, and this is being made by making use of the different systems or rules that we have there, and it's only by understanding these rules intrinsically that the person is able to create more. And that is why this model is called as this transformational generative model. What does transformation means? Change. Okay, and generating means to create. So by transforming the rules that are already there, and by transforming the sentences and ideas that are already there, new ideas, new sentences are continuously generated according to this method. Okay, and in this method what happens is that is a basic distinction between the surface structure and the deep structure of any utterance. Okay, if any sentence is given, Noam Chomsky says that there is a surface structure and a deep structure. Okay, and it is the deep structure which helps us to analyze the sentence rather than the surface structure. Okay, all right, so that is basically what TG grammar is for you. Okay, and we'll also, again, just like we did with the others, we'll begin by analyzing sentences to see how this actually works out. Another one more point before I forget is that, remember we studied competence and performance. So TG grammar has to do with a person's competence rather than his performance. So it is a competence theory, okay, rather than a performance theory. So in transformational generative grammar, as I already told you, there are two aspects: transformational aspect and generative aspect. Okay, transformational aspect, it shows us that the essential relationship between sentences such as active or passive, affirmative or negative, etc. Okay, and from the generative part, we can say that it shows us how different types of sentences are actually derived from a few basic type of sentences through the application of certain rules. Okay, and these rules, unlike in PS rules, these are called T rules or transformational rules. Okay, and using these transformational rules to a few basic sentences, we are able to create many different sentences. Now, such basic type of sentences are called kernel sentences. Remember, we learned this when we began syntax. Okay, so kernel sentences are simple affirmative, active and declarative sentences. Other types can be derived from these kernel sentences by the application of T rules. Okay, so the sentences that you get by after applying these rules are called as transforms or non-kernel sentences. Okay, so complex sentences, your compound sentences, your negative sentences, passive and interrogative sentences are called as non-kernel sentences. So to understand transformational generative grammar, we need to understand four important procedures or four T rules that happen as which help us to form different sentences. Okay, the first one is rearrangement. Okay, rearrangement. All right. Now what happens here is that the elements of a particular sentence are rearranged in such a way that, you know, a different kind of utterance can happen. For example, the sentence, he can run. Okay. Now when you apply T rule to this particular sentence, what you do is you make a particular arrow like this. Okay. It's got two lines and then the arrow symbol, and you transform. Okay. So you're going to rearrange the words that are already here, and I will say, can he run? And this becomes a question. It becomes an interrogative sentence. So from an affirmative sentence, this is how you formed a interrogative sentence. Okay. The second procedure that you can have is called as an addition of elements. Okay. Addition of elements. What is addition? You add new elements. Yes. So again, let's use the same sentence. He can run, and I'm going to apply T rule here. And what am I going to do? I am going to add something. So I'll add this word not and say he cannot run. Okay, so here an addition is done and it has transformed. All right, so you write T rule here to make it apparent that you have used a T rule. Okay, so what these T rules are and all, we don't need to go into that. You just need to understand the basics. All right, the third one, let me just clear this so that it's deletion. Okay, deletion. So you delete certain elements. Deletion of elements. So what happens is, you know, sort of like saying, please don't talk. Okay, that's a sentence. And when you apply the T rule here, you delete something, and I delete this word please, and it becomes don't talk. All right, so that is another way in which you can form sentences. The last one is called substitution. And here what happens is that, you know, you substitute some elements for the others. All right, and for that you can say, you know, I did it. When I say I did it on my own. Okay, and instead of that, when you apply the T rule, this has to be in one line. Okay, just doing this because there's no space. I can say I did it. Instead of saying my own, I can say I did it myself. All right, so I have substituted two words and added one word. Okay, so that's how I was able to form a new sentence. All right, so see this, these are four basic procedures that can, from basic, I know that these are simple to understand. These are some basic procedures, and by applying this transformation rule of, you know, rearranging some things, of adding something, of deleting something, or substituting something, you are able to identify or form new utterances. All right, now there's something called as active to passive transformation. All right, and this is a little complicated because usually when you do active to passive, it turns out to be wrong, right? So if you say that sentence 1 is a kernel sentence, which means it is in active voice, it is affirmative, all right, and you want to turn it into a passive one. All right, so let's look at this sentence. Tom saw Sally. All right, that is a very, very basic sentence, and I'm going to use the T rule here and make it into passive. What is the passive form? Yes, Sally was seen by Tom, right? Now let's look at the basic structure of these sentences. Okay, let's say this is S1 and let's say this is S2. In S1, if you analyze this, okay, remember PS rule. Let's apply PS rule here and see. Okay, there's a NP, noun phrase 1, okay, plus saw. Okay, there is a verb phrase, or there is a verb rather, and there is an NP2. All right, so what is the basic structure here? S is equal to NP plus VP is the rule that you get here. Okay, noun phrase and verb phrase. Let's look at this. Okay, S2 is equal to, S2 is here. What happens? There's a noun phrase. Okay, was seen. What is that there? That's an auxiliary. Okay, auxiliary plus B form. Okay, it's a B form auxiliary that is there, and there's the past tense en. Okay, so there is, instead of writing all that, you can just write verb phrase plus again NP1. All right, so here what was NP2 is coming to the front and NP1 is going to the back. All right, so that is what happens. This, it's just a restructuring of elements, and within that you are adding, just like when you do active passive, you're adding a B form and an en form, okay, to make it from active to passive. Now, this is not something that you have to study. I was just showing you an example of how transformational rules are used. Okay, now that you have this particular rule here, after using transformational grammar, you have this particular rule here. Okay, so using this rule, you will be able to change any other sentence into the passive voice also. That is what this theory says. Okay, and this is what basically transformational generative grammar is. So I hope that this was clear, okay, that actually each of these methods, IC analysis, PS grammar, and TG grammar, okay, we have just like sort of skirted through the surface. We have not even gone in yet, okay. So this is just the basic idea, because your syllabus is very, let's say, vague as to whether we should discuss these points or not. But this is what we in MG University, you have these particular subsections noted down, but in our syllabus it's just written as syntax. So but I don't want you to miss out. If some of you are going for your PG, then you will need to have a basic idea of these things. Of course, when you go to your PG programs, you'll have in-depth study of all of these, okay, and don't worry, it's not going to be very difficult. But this is what basically IC analysis, PS grammar, and TG grammar is. And with this, we have come to the end of syntax and our first module. Okay, and we have also completed almost half of second module. And what I want you to do is for 1 hour, okay, maybe you can practice doing some IC analysis, some PS analysis, and some T rule changing. Okay, don't do this active to passive, but what we saw, the four ways of transforming the sentences that we saw earlier. Okay, try and do it with a few sentences. That is what you can do for a few days. And after this, what I want you to do is begin phonetic transcription. Okay, when your teacher comes in, you can say that you are practicing transcribing words. So what I want you to do is form groups of let's say 5 people. I was going to make the buddy system, but I did not get time. Okay, so you can do it yourself also. Find a buddy for yourself, and or if you don't want to have one person, you can break down into groups of 5. And during the linguistics hour, please practice transcription. Okay, that is something that you really need to do. I cannot stress on how important it is, because as you go into sentence transformation, the next things that we have to learn is rhythm and stress and all of that. Okay, and you cannot learn all that unless you know the basic transcription, which is the first step almost. Okay, so please, while you have time right now during my hours until the next teacher comes in, please make sure that you are doing a lot of transcription. Okay, pick up on some difficult words. Okay, it's going to be fun. So please try and do some transcription, so so that by the time you go into the next unit, your teacher will not have to force you to keep on doing transcription and then waste time like that. So I hope whatever I taught you this semester was hopefully understandable. I know this part is a little bit confusing, but we're just skirting through the surface. You just need to know, be aware that there is something called TG grammar, there's something called PS grammar. Okay, so this is what I wanted to teach you, and I hope you all have wonderful, bright futures, and we will meet soon, someday, somewhere. All right, thank you.